Good afternoon, everyone. The time is now 4:03, and I'll call to order our Wednesday, August 20th, 2025 meeting of the Capital Area Transportation Authority Board of Directors, and ask our secretary, please call the roll.
Keith Carter, Kelly Blackwell, Bill Chang, Chelsea Dollar, here, Shannon Dryheimer, Mark Gardner,
Here.
Derek Milo,
Present.
John Frosch, Ed Rogers,
Here.
Jack Schmidt, Eric Tan, Ethan Triplett,
Here.
and Stephen Magnuson.
Here. All right, thank you, everyone. That brings us now to our first public comment opportunity on agenda item. The time we set aside during each of our meetings to take comments from the public on any item on our agenda this evening. I should note, especially for tonight, if you have comments related to the fiscal 26 budget, we will have a separate public hearing on the agenda for that item. So if folks have comments on agenda items other than the budget, they would be able to make them at this opportunity. We ask you to please consider filling out a blue card to assist our secretary and to limit your comments to 3 minutes. I'll call folks in the order in which I've had cards submitted in advance and then ask if there's anyone else in the room who wishes to offer comment. Our first commenter this evening will be Deb Parrish. Deb?
Mine's all budget related, so I guess I have to wait for it.
We'll be there in the next item, so we'll be right there.
Okay.
And then Mr. Black, is your comment for the end of the meeting then, if it's regarding Tina, because I don't believe she's on our agenda this evening, so I'll get you at the end. All right, is there anyone else who wishes to offer public comment at this first opportunity on agenda items? All right, seeing no one, sorry to make you get up on that.
I'll be back.
You will be very shortly here. As I already mentioned, our chief agenda item this evening is our public hearing on the fiscal year 2026 budget and the 2025 property tax levy. We have a formal procedure here at CATA that we go through on this, which we will begin now. Today is August 20th, 2025. The time is 4:05 p.m. The board will now commence our public hearing on CATA's proposed fiscal 2026 budget and 2025 property tax levy. For the information of the board and also the members of the public, notice of this hearing was published on CATA's website at cata.org, July 18th, 2025. Notice was posted at CATA's administration building, the downtown CTC, the MSU CTC, and the Capital Area Multimodal Gateway, July 18, 2025. Notice was distributed to CATA social media networks on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and what was formerly known as Twitter at CATA, July 18th, July 25th, August 1st, August 5th, August 13th, August 18th, and August 20th, 2025 at various times on those dates. Notice was mailed July 18, 2025 via the United States Postal Service to 160 private transit agencies, human services organizations, and organizations that prioritize disadvantaged and underserved populations. Notice was emailed July 18, 2025 to 34 private agencies, human services organizations, and organizations that prioritize disadvantaged and underserved populations. Notice was emailed on July 18, 2025 to the cities of Lansing and East Lansing, as well as the townships of Delhi, Lansing, and Meridian. Notice was emailed on the 18th of July to the Eagan County Board of Commissioners and Michigan State University. Notice was emailed on July 18, 2025 to the E-Tran Board of Directors, as well as the Eagan County Board of Commissioners. Notice was published in the Lansing City Pulse, July 16, 2025, July 23, 2025, as well as online at lansingcitypulse.com on July 16th through July 20th, 2025. Notice was published in the Lansing City Journal, July 20th, 2025, and July 27th, 2025, as well as online at lsj.com, July 20 through August 20, 2025. Notice was published in the Chronicle News, August 1, 2025, and August 15, 2025, as well as online at chroniclenews.com, August 1 through August 15, 2025. Notice was published in the New Citizens Press, August 3rd, 2025 through August 16, 2025. In other words, the meeting is noticed. The proposed fiscal year 2026 budget would establish an operating budget of $70,736,470. The proposed 2025 property tax levy of 3.007 mils is to support the operating budget. To explain our procedure this evening, I will first ask staff if there are any comments that have been received during the public comment period, and then open the meeting for comments for those who are in attendance. We're going to ask our CEO, Brad Funkhauser, to please report on any comments that you've received prior to this meeting related to the proposed budget or tax levy. Brad?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we did receive a written comment on July 23rd from Zachary Eagleton. Now we'll read it to you for the record. Hello, CATA. The proposed 2026 budget is generally good, although it does feel vague, such as what the facility improvements are. Thanks, Zach. Only from receipts.
Zach happens to be watching at home this evening. We appreciate your comments. Zach, thank you for participating in the process. I will now open the meeting for public comment regarding the proposed budget or the proposed tax levy. I'll call on those who wish to make comments. Your time to comment will be limited to 5 minutes. When I call on you, please stand and tell us your name and address for the record if you're willing. And if there's anyone here present this evening who wishes to make comment, I'll ask you to raise your hand after we hear from Deb Parrish, because she already indicated this is the item that she wishes to speak to. So Deb, let's start.
I won't be as long-winded as you were saying all that where it was published.
Sarah.
I just have a couple things. Contracted for the Spectrum services. Are we really paying $11,904,000 to Transdev for Spectrum and rural service? I'd like to know, are they picking up more clients now than what they used to, or are they short on drivers? Creating a lot of tight schedules for the regular Spectrum. And I'd like to know how much we paid for this really nice meeting room that now has a very pretty carpet and chairs. So I don't know if that's in part of the budget. Because we have a great meeting room at Trainer there and all you people don't have to come down here and park underneath there, just, just go up the stairs to the boardroom. And I just want to know for the, Capital Operator Training Center, do we own that building? Are we renting it? And who pays the utilities? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Deb. Is there anyone else who wishes to offer public comment related to the fiscal 26 budget or 2025 property tax levies? All right, seeing none, as there is no further public comment, I will now close the public hearing on CATA's proposed fiscal 26 budget and property tax levy at 4:11 p.m. And just to explain to folks how this will go for the rest of the afternoon in our meeting, that we have a couple of other budget items to get through, and we'll return to both of these items on our discussion agenda for discussion and approval. With that, chair's comments, I'll keep it very brief this evening. The only item I wanted to make sure that we took care of tonight was to request excuse absences for 3 of our colleagues, Jack, John, and Phil. There are motions to excuse the requested absences. Moved by Shanna, seconded by Eric. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Those absences are approved. Brad, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and fellow board members and fellow members of the public. First on the agenda, you have seen over the last 10 days or so, there's been a lot of attention on our budget. I think that's fantastic because this is now the talk of not only the transit industry in Michigan, but nationally. And that's what I was telling some of the reporters when asked about this budget. I originally was giving a report to the Lansing City Council Committee of the Whole. And as you know, back to our retreat in January, we started to project a shortfall in this budget that will continue. But we had saved back our reserves for that to be able to put this budget. So it was striking for some to see that we had to dip into our reserves. What it did, I believe, is got a broader conversation going at the state level. In fact, Michigan Public Transit Association just issued a press release yesterday talking about the dramatic increase in paratransit services statewide. As you know, the CATA region produces the largest number of trips in the state. So yes, we do a lot of trips, both with our contractor and directly operated. It is the state and federal government revenue sources that have declined over the past couple of years. As you know, the local bus operating is basically divided up between every transit agency in the state. So as the budgets across the state increase, the percentage drop. And they are at historic lows right now. So I'm glad we're talking about it. I'm glad this board is talking about it. I'm glad the public is talking about it because without change at the state and federal level, there will be a huge shortfall in your. Number two, there has been, a lot of interest in, should have paused there. Now the fun stuff. There's been a lot of, interest in electric vehicles. We have approached this delicately, softly to make sure that we can do this, equitably and make sure we put service on the street, but it isn't just our vehicles for our passengers, it's also access to chargers for our employees. That's been asked about a couple of times. I'm proud to tell you that we have 4 electric chargers that have been delivered, and we're working with Board of Water and Light to install a transformer. So we will have charging units at the Trantor facility, right, Andrew, all at Trantor, within the next 30 days or so. I know that's been a question that the board has passed, and while it's kind of a side issue, it's important for employees and guests to Trantor to be able to use that technology as well. This week, we also expanded the CATA rides service. This is not only geographically expanding those zones, this is the micro transit, first, last mile. This is the smaller vehicles that are contracted to get people to and from the airport, North Lansing. But we've also this week, with a separate state grant, launched this service into the overnight service into Delta. So this, if you recall, was to allow those on third shift to be able to get to Amazon and some of the other employers from economically depressed areas in the Lansing area. So that was launched this week. And finally, if you did notice, today is the first day of school, and we are taking Lansing School District students from school. We expect that to ramp up next week when people figure out their paths and things really turn on next week. Our Spartan service started this week. You may recall we started a week early, and then classes start next week. So the buses are rolling right now and getting everybody used to those. Our guides, our CATA guide, if you will, helping the new students navigate the campus, are going to be out there this week. Andrew, toward the end of the week or beginning of next week?
Beginning of next week.
Beginning of next week, we start classes. So we are prepared for both of those. And this would be a good time for me to pause as the ambulance goes by. So I think that's the end of my report.
Any questions or comments for Brad on this? Mark?
That we're paying this, that I was supposed to action in the board, if I remember. Do we know the marginal cost of my typical rides?
No, but I can read that for you. And I'm certain that they're more expensive at the beginning because of market cost, being people used to that. It's very similar to what it seems to get, it's via the contractor. But I can get that information.
We have a fuel chart, fuel price, which you never really told anything good for. I think that the rides, the cost per ride will be an interesting chart to watch over that. For $5,000. So if we were finding those would be very different.
I will tell you, and I appreciate that perspective, because it's always a balance between the cost to provide and providing service at all. And this is gap service, especially to those third shift workers. And so we're in the airport. And so we're hoping that it catches on and then we make it more efficient. Thank you, Stephen.
Other questions or comments for Brad before Stephen?
I guess I would just like to make the public aware that the figures for 2025 show that the split between what's called demand response versus fixed group classes, that demand response is very close to gas providers, gas control providers. I think a really positive indication of the well-run agency. serving the public need for all.
Your comment. Other board member questions or comments on that before we can? No, okay, I did not. You did bring back. And this is pertaining to the budget. In general, yes. So it certainly has been, in conversation, not only with, members of our employees and the public, but also other kinds of agencies. I was talking to the director of VDOT conference 2 days. It's throughout the state, we're all facing the shortfall. And unfortunately, we planned for it, so that we wouldn't have to cut service. And as I said in the start, I think it's fair that full disclosure, it's coming. And if we do not deal with it, of an industry, of the state and of the nation, the example that I used with you, very live, under some $1 million budget, and they're cutting service at a drastic level. The article today is talking about the battle between the urban and rural jurisdictions. It is a conversation that is of the presidents, and I think we have to come forward, we plan for it, we don't have to cut service. I think it's going to get a lot of attention. I am very hopeful that the LBO was explored. And it is a real threat here from outside. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to say that I am really pleased with the partnership that we have with the school district. I'll say the school, my kids are elementary school age, but they do ride the school bus. One thing that I've thought about is I know that CATA is usually lost. I wonder if we've ever had any sort of investigation into making the student ID for the students already have scannable. And then also I read recently that the state of Ohio has the state law banning these types of partnerships. I'm wondering if there's been any sort of rumblings about that here. That would be a real interesting.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the rumblings, if I'm addressing what you are addressing, is not an unfamiliar one. It's talking about school bus transportation. To be clear, we do not contract with the school district to provide school bus transportation. It's regulated at the federal level as what we do is we provide passes to the school district and then work with them to make sure that they're able to ride fixed route like everybody else is. We are required to do open door. So it's I believe that is the issue. And some have, not us, but some have migrated into that, and fairly, we don't do school bus. Other questions or comments for Brad? All right, seeing none, then that brings us to our proposed consent agenda for this evening. The agenda, as noticed, included 4 items for the board's consideration. Those are the approval of the minutes of the July 2025 board meeting, the treasurer's report for June 2025, the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan 2026 budgets. Just a note, we'll be removing this item this evening. There was a computational error in the safety performance targets chart that was caught actually by our colleague, Stephen. And so staff's requested that that item be removed so the error can be corrected and it can be brought back to the. And then finally, the architectural and engineering services at 420 South Grand Avenue. Does any member of the board desire to have any of the remaining items removed from the consent agenda to the discussion? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Derek, seconded by Stephen. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carried, the consent agenda is approved. That brings us to our discussion agenda, which includes two items for the board's consideration this evening. The first is the 2025 property tax levy. And let me ask Brad if there are any additional comments from staff at this time before we turn back and forth.
Just a point of clarification. Yeah, so, the one point I'll make is that this is the last year of the levy that was passed in 2020, the one that we just passed here in spring, starts in 2026. Not the other one that,
Sorry.
So, with this, the last year of the 2020, whatever year we did, okay. And isn't there a heavy rollback on this? Isn't it below 2007 next year? There is a heavy rollback on this, but I guess the gross millage is the 3.07. What? So we're actually gonna levy something legal with some lower number. Yeah. 9, 3, 6, 3, 2, 1, 5. Exactly. Oh, yes. Yeah, so it'll go back up to what we adopted a clean 3007. We just forward, right? Yes. So we will, then we'll go back to 3007, but the way the board of commissioners review it is they're the actual rate. So we were gonna levy and not to levy what we like, had to finish. But whatever, I'm sure it's legal, so I sure. But when it's 2% lower. Sense. Not sure it's 2%, it is lower, I'm not sure it's 2% lower.
If there are no other staff comments, then let me ask if there are board member questions or comments on Derek.
Are you more interested in just doing this with one action item and combining or doing it separate?
We should do it separate. Other questions? I should just note for the benefit of folks who might be watching online or who are in the room, we held a public hearing tonight. This is, at this point, I've actually lost track of the number of times we've had this budget and tax rate on our agenda through discussions throughout our planning process. So it's a culmination of many conversations over many months that have led to this document. And it's not atypical for our board that we do not have a conversation without somebody.
You can let Mark do a history kind of roll back.
Please, Nana.
That's the part here.
It's worth saying. And I don't want to come across like I'm against it, but we should just know, this is the highest tax levy for anybody, maybe possibly, there's some little tiny municipality, someplace that takes a little tiny tax area. But if anything that's big enough to find on a map, you have the highest levy in generally it's way larger than anything else levy. And Ingham County, it's not exactly coterminous with this village area, has the highest average millage of any county in the state. Now, Worth, Wayne, here, bigger than Genesee. And so, and it's not anything that's bigger than the county statistic. But it's the intermediate schools, and it's LCC, and it's all the same. But we have taxpayers who support public services and who vote in favor of military cases that some of us are puzzled by even. And we should just realize that we are entrusted by a public that supports us and supports service. So, what I'm not out of pain, but we have a zoo, and the people in Stockbridge vote in favor of the zoo mill. It's 40 miles by road. I don't know, but nonetheless, these, all the things that we support in this area, our taxpayers, I wouldn't say are generous, but appreciate public services. And appreciate that they are not being swindled by the public entities that represent them. And therefore, they support the millage request that we place before them. CATA has maybe on 2 occasions lost a millage in 50 years. Roughly twice, maybe 3 times. Each time we just took a step back and came closing the nose And then we place on the ballot again, like your form, it's approved, the renewals are always approved overwhelmingly. And we're beginning to see resistance to tank in general, but of the problem. But so far, CATA has not encountered any of that, and I think the yield would call for it. The best way to keep the support for a number like 3007 is to not get involved in scandals and not drive the thing on $65,000 a year. All the things that we try to fix and stay ahead of. So, anyway. Raise a particular clear comment, please. Yeah.
But thank you for regardless. Are there other board member comments or questions? Chelsea?
Oh, that's like building off of that a little bit. Yeah, I think in Sonoma County, there's a lot of desire for public services, a lot of support for our agencies, and I think something that any tax levying body should always ask is like, is Hingham County getting its fair share of that services of whatever we're paying a higher number? And I think probably yes, but I think that should always be in the back of mind, especially discussions happening. So, there's a lot of collaboration with Hingham County, and I think we should really really trying to build off of that. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on the levy? The only thing that I'll note quickly, before I ask for a motion, and we approve the levy, is just to try to put the thread that connects all these things together today, which is, I expected, Mark, that you would make your comment. I believe you have made, every year that I have been on this board, reminding folks that we have one of the most significant, if not the most significant, transit tax levies in the state. I think that is worth reminding this board. I think it reminds us of the weight of the decisions that we make here. But I would also note, especially for the members of the public who might be watching or who are looking at this, that it is in large part due to their willingness to consistently approve those millages at that level, that our conversation at this budget tonight is much different than the conversation that is happening in other transit agencies around the state and around the country, because that helped us to plan to get to this moment where we can try and stave off, for the time being, significant service cuts driven by state and federal disinvestment in transit. And that's not the only piece of that picture, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, and perhaps to your point, Chelsea, the community gets, and we can help protect this service on their behalf in large part because they generously approve this budget repeatedly. It puts us in a stronger position to weather the storm of the state and the federal government not being able to decide whether they want to invest in transit or at all, or whatever it is that's going on down the street right now with the state budget right now. Mark?
Sure, the latest, but if we are talking about $40 million of taxes for travelers, a couple of things that we ought to just make explicit. There's a separate 0.6 mil levy by the county, which pays for fair transit. So this is not perfectly, but more or less line. It's 3 mil. No, it's not exactly, but that we tried to make it this line hauler, county way for fair transit, not exactly. That 6 cents of a mil also supported overwhelmingly by the public. Not exactly that at a surface area, but more or less. And the other thing to note is that Meridian Townships, I think it goes to zero next year, or was not levied this year, was not. So their 2 cents of a mil goes away. That's your hope. So until then, Meridian Township was the little bump on the top of the mountain, and it was the very highest point. But now high above. So.
Thanks, Mark. Any other final comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the 2025 property tax levy moved by Ed? Is there a second? Seconded by Mark. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Our second and final discussion item agenda then is the fiscal year 2026 budget approval. I would just note the same comments I made earlier. We've discussed this many times over the course of that federal month, but I will turn to Brad and to Jim one last time to see if there's any final information staff would like to provide before this evening. And I do not. No. All right. Board member questions or comments on the budget before I ask for a motion. Mark?
Sorry, I just haven't do it. We're costing a lot of money. Because of that, I would not have the rigors that many other cancer agencies in town. We have not come face to face with financial distress. And so we have not been forced to undertake the searching examination for where we find quarters of those out. We've not, wondered if we have all the bottles in the garage is full of bottles, the house is full of quarters. More to the point, I think we provide some services that if we looked at real hard, we probably would have thought we could do without that. Especially now that we're staring a vast deficit of the not. I hope that you do this budget, you have carefully begun to think about exactly when service ends, exactly the frequency shifts of transit usage over time. And I just think as we add service, there are services that are becoming unnecessary or that no longer would be worth adding. We maybe are turning them on because we always have, it's sort of a handful of riders depend on it. But we wouldn't provide service for a handful of riders. Even if there are some riders who will infringe if once the community is largely and the payoff, they really need to pay that. I suppose next year's budget, we're gonna finally actually see some saving hours. So I think we can some of that during COVID, for whatever 4 or 5 or 6 weeks we've never used. I don't think it can roll back up. And simplicity, I suspect those were partly because of reduced demand that nobody felt needed in stores. Anyway, I just think we should be thinking about the service that we provide that has become less important, and we should be thinking about our competition in the world, for the regular folks, CMCs or the uber-lit world, and realizing that people have alternatives to us. And we should be thinking about ways to work with them and save our costs. This guy, one of who's us all, I had coasting, because we have our 3 mills and it's a fencing mill. Life is was easier for us than we should. A little bit of hardship we probably would do.
John.
I think Mark's point is right, and I'll just start with saying that. I think. Discussions about it and what those trade-offs are, and I think we have done a very good job. I think there's also some question. But I also part of it is trying new things, trying new routes, trying new partnerships. And I think that is critical for the larger region. And you always have to be balancing it too, because having a static view of what transit is and what that service will also be. Very nervous about the computers and so change course. That's to be considered. I been doing a lot of work in my day job on data and getting those to follow the activities of the year and half ago and until then including partnership together council, they get also survey data. Population from declining, our economy has not really rebounded from declining manufacturing from our stuff. If we are going to reverse that, we need to not be as old a state as we are. And so we are an aging state, which means we have more needs for transit, paratransit, and all of the above. And we need to be attracting young working adults and retaining. And all of the survey data that has come out of that cites Michigan's across the board, lack of transit access. It's not just Michigan, but we don't fare well, and several of our peers. And we have to be investing in this. We have to be investing in this, make sure
that the 41% of people in the state who are below the Alice threshold have access to fixed route and other transit options. And that people who are riders of choice, who don't want to kill the planet, and want to be able to ride transit, have that ability too. So I'm not all of us to be those champions. Staff is that champion. I'm so glad you're having this conversation. I think the dialogue is really important, but I think each of us individually and collectively need to also get that voice that is like, this is not good. It's not good enough for a state that says it wants to be a place where people raise families, grow anymore. And that's changing. And I think we have the champions for that. Covers that.
Sure. Other board member questions or comments? Mark?
One more, it'd be grants that I would only angry, but I'm not. We should understand that this budget provides services that put CATA in this region, they're fundamentally different place than anybody else. So we have a much higher tax levy. But if you, I don't know the exact number, but I just proposed one, I bet it's about right. A typical middle class person in a single family house who owns a car and is not handicapped is probably between 5 and 10 times more likely to take the bus in Cleveland County than that same person is who lives in West Bloomfield or who lives in Shelby Township or who lives in, in the suburb of Genesee or Saginaw. Yeah, or even, Ann Arbor. We actually have substantial transit use because we provide such a high level of service. So it's both frequent and also good service. The impact of that is that when we ask people for money, we're not, we ask that in West Bloomfield and people are thinking, about that handful of people who are transit dependent, who that person might know. Here, it's very likely that they occasionally ride the bus, or the person across the street rides the bus, or the kids automatically take the bus. It's because we have such a high level of transit compared to other municipalities, per capita. We also have built in this support, this reservoir of support. And so that allows us to ask them for money, get the money, take providing services. This would be very easy to break. I don't know, there are lots of ways to do it. I won't explore them, but we need to continue to provide a good level of service. We need to continue to support people. We continue to encourage ordinary sort of classes for, I'm sure, politically correct stuff, but and normal, ordinary folks who are not transit dependent to see public transit as a perfectly okay way to get from point A to point B. It's a sensible way to get to this wherever you're going, get the bus after London. That's not the case if you live in Grand Blanc. It says that, you here, you live in Grand Blanc and took the bus down, just to be an outgoing. Here it's not even 40 tomorrow. So this budget we're passing implicitly includes the assumption of a very high level of usage and a very high level of service and a very high level of act.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Appreciate you. But I think there are some routes, I'll just say the one route, I'm an East Sider, so I take the one bus everywhere. I think that there are some routes in the city that could really, and I'm excited for the comprehensive operational analysis to really reveal that, but I do think at times, even I haven't been on board for very long, but I don't think there needs to be a conflict between a social service and economic development for CATA's role, but I do think at times, this is a discussion that ends up, it's like, well, we can't provide service for just those 12 folks that use this, they rely on it, but it's only 12 people. So I think you don't need to, I think it can be both. But I think it requires strategic investing in certain routes, recognizing there are some routes where, I'll just keep saying the Michigan Avenue route, that was an initial transit route when the city was built, it came with trolley. That's why Michigan Avenue and Grand River are so great. So really looking at those routes and trying to build them up, I think would be great. But I don't think it needs to be an either or situation. Obviously, with budget situations happening, maybe it does, but I would really love to bring in the conversation, it's just economic development, whether you are transit dependent or you're a choice rider. Both of those people, if we can make riding the bus appealing to them, both of those things will achieve that top 12 benefits. So.
Other comments? Stephen?
What's gelling in my mind is that, to be fair, we have a wide portfolio of options, transit options. I think what part of the operational assessment company is maybe have we make adjustment to which types of service fit certain areas, maybe there, areas where we have, this just hypothetical, a line service that has low ridership could be better served by one of these other methods without disadvantaging the existing riders. I think that would be the ideal goal, would be to match our services the best provide our potential customers.
Stephen?
I move approval of the budget as presented.
Moved by Derek, seconded by Ed, last call. I'll just note very quickly before I call for the vote. I think that the key takeaways from my perspective from this document, because there's a lot of conversation that I think could easily conflate what does this do and what does the future hold. Thanks to the incredibly hard work of our staff, the work of this board, this budget maintains service levels. I think we should be proud of that. Staff deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that. Brad, Andrew, Jim, and the rest of the team. That's great. I think we should celebrate it. There's a lot of other good things happening here around regionalism and sustainability and community services, investing in shelters and the like. That's on the positive and sort of the CATA specific side of the ledger. The other side of the ledger is what's happening at the state level, and I just want to end the conversation about the budget, lifting up the fact that Brad mentioned in passing his remarks. As I said earlier, I don't know what's going to happen with the state budget again. I do know that we are at near historic levels as far as LDO reimbursement rate in current fiscal year. Any of the administration's proposal were adopted as it was, so no negotiating, no haggling. Just as the executive budget was presented, it would be the lowest reimbursement rate for local bus operating in our state's history. That's not sustainable. As I everything Shannon said, that's not the direction that we need to go. But when we talk about what this document's going to look like next year for CATA, probably the single most important thing that will determine that future course of the decisions made in that Capitol building down the road and in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And I would just encourage the other members of the board, members of the public who are listening, that we've got to make it clear to our representatives who are making those decisions. There's a lot going on right now. There's a bunch of important conversations in the budget, but one of those important conversations is about transit, especially as we're having all these discussions about road investment, which is important. But the longer we talk about only roads and don't talk about a transportation system, the longer agencies like this that are serving folks are going to find themselves in a difficult position. So to end on a high note, one fact out from this budget, at the sort of the dark days of the pandemic, our ridership was hovering around 3 million rides. The projection for 2025 is for the last fiscal year is 9.6 million rides. We're nearly back up to over 10 million rides. I anticipate that trend will continue. This is a service that is used by many people for many reasons. It's important, it's growing. I think all of those things warrant the state and federal government investing in it. So I hope next year we'll be having a positive conversation, but that's only going to happen if we stay engaged. So kudos to staff for their work, kudos to this board for their work. Thank you for the motion and second. And if there's no further discussion, I'll ask all those in favor of approving the 26 budget, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That motion carries. The budget is approved. We have no old business for this evening. We do have one item of new business, which is our nominating committee report. And thanks to Derek for serving the role of chair of that committee. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee did meet a couple of weeks ago, the digital meetings, Renominate the current slate of officers, Nathan Trickle Chair, Shannon Drainheim Vice Chair, Shane Secretary Treasurer. And thank you to Jack and Kelly for helping us come to that conclusion, and I think I'm for it.
Thank you for your report. Thank you to the members of the committee for their service. Just a reminder for the board members about how this process works at CATA. The nominating committee makes their recommendation. At this meeting, the election is actually held in September. The officers take office in October. It's more complicated to become a CATA officer than is a member of the state legislature or the president of the United States. So we have a multi-step process here, but we'll see this back on the agenda at the September meeting. So Derek and company, thank you. Congratulations. Nothing yet, just a recommendation. Yeah, just the job is done. We said, yeah. All right. That brings us to our second and final public comment opportunity. This is the time that we set aside to take comment on any items related to CATA business. We ask that you please consider filling out a blue card to assist our secretary, and that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. I will have a timer to assist you with that. I'll call folks in the order in which the cards are submitted, and then ask if there are any further comments at the second and final opportunity. We'll begin with Deb Parrish. Deb?
Thank you. I don't need any hardship in my life either. I can't afford a car because it's like more than a car nowadays is more than my house is valued at. And then you have upkeep and everything, and a lot of people can't afford it, especially when you're working minimum wage jobs. I told a person on Ready Right I was coming to the board meeting, and Mary said, thank you for the service. She understands what it means for her independence, an elderly lady, to get out. You're at Walmart buying cookies, but we don't have to talk about that. But she's just so thankful, and we both reminisce that we've been riding since '72. As teenagers going downtown to the movie theater, go to Woolworths, this has been a service for a long time, and it is needed. Especially in these days, people, I don't know how they can afford food and a car. I had an incident on a Spectrum bus, I had a little bit of an injury, and my physical therapist said that he's heard a lot of complaints from the people that he works with about CATA, the drivers are being rude. And that makes me sad that someone who doesn't even involved in it hears these stories. But I know it's true, and that makes me even more sad. But I've always told you, I'm here for a voice of the people who cannot come here, to voice their concerns. Safety issues are a big thing for me, and I try to point that out. But if they treat me that way, I have 2 degrees. I'm very intelligent. But I can't imagine the people that severely mentally challenged or elderly people, if they're treated that way. I can't go for that, We still don't let our sister ride the bus Spectrum alone. Because we're very fearful of her being left or dropped off someplace. So we have to go with her. But she loves that service. She loves to go to Buddies and Dollar General. But I'm just really thankful for the people that voted for the millage. I tell people, you don't know what tomorrow brings. I was in the medical field, I had cancer, and I was down for the count. And I really relied on that service then, and I appreciate it now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next comment will be from Daniel Black.
I've been absent for a couple months here, so it's time for another public service announcement. For the sake of the folks that don't have a hearing enabled device or whatever, Dan might call this, as well as for the online audience. It would be appreciated that the board members and eat their microphone. Please sneak up on that microphone, just like Taylor Swift, if you notice, and Mick Jagger are right up on that microphone. So the fact that it gives Dan a challenge with over modulation. Maybe maybe, an extension device on each of your microphones. Might enable it to be, shoved up into your mouth rather than having to speak up on the microphone. But on another, so that Jim down here or any others along the sides, can, add their 2 cents when asked. Maybe a microphone, a loose microphone might be put down at the other end of the table, for like Jim down here or the others on the side, in the middle so that they can grab it and, eat that microphone. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Those are all the blue cards that had submitted in advance. Is there anyone else who wishes to offer public comment at the second and final opportunity this? All right, seeing none, the last item on our agenda then is a request for a closed session to discuss strategy in connection with the negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement. The board will recall this is a standing item that we have on our agenda throughout the pendency of conversations with the ATU. I do believe, I'm looking at Brad and Andrew, that we do have a brief update tonight for the board. So I would ask for a motion for the board to move into closed session for that purpose. Moved by Shanna, seconded by Eric. This is going to require a roll call vote, but just a quick logistical note before I ask Tina to call the roll. For members of the public present or who are online, we will not be conducting any further public business this evening. We will come back into public session after the conclusion of the closed session, only for the purpose of declaring the meeting adjourned, which means we'll also be discontinuing the live stream tonight. You won't be missing anything. Your meeting will be done at the end. We just wanted folks to be clear on that. After the motion is approved, we'll take a brief pause so that folks can leave the room for the board to be able to conduct its closed session, and then again, we will be returning to open session only for the purpose of adjourning the meeting. So it's been moved and seconded that the board move into closed session for a strategy session in connection with the negotiation of the collective bargaining agreement. Tina, can you call the roll on this motion, please?
Kelly Blackwell, Philip Shane, Kelsey Darwood. Jim Jordan, Mark Gardner.
Yes.
Eric Emo,
Yes.
John Fry, Ed Rogers,
Yes, with the candy application and breakthrough.
Jeff Schmidt, Eric Tam,
Yes.
David Triplett,
Yes.
David Clay.
Yes. All right, that motion carries. So, for logistical purposes and honor as request, we will take just a brief pause during the meeting to let folks leave the room, and then we'll return for our closed session. Thank you all for attending this evening's board meeting. We appreciate it.